Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another journey into the realm of ancient tales. Tonight, as the day winds down and shadows lengthen, we'll venture into the very beginning of the Norse cosmos. Our story speaks of a time before time, when the primordial giant Ymir's vast form became the mountains, oceans, and skies we know. It's a tale of creation born from sacrifice, a foundational myth of the Norse world. So snuggle in, get cozy, and let's begin. But just before we begin, if our stories help you drift off, please tap the like and subscribe buttons. In my channel, you can find Norse, Greek, and Egyptian mythology tales. Comment and tell me which myth you'd like to hear next. Your support helps us craft and shape more calm stories for fellow night owls. And now let your shoulders sink softly into the mattress and your mind drift into today's tale. The story begins a long time ago. It was before time itself, before anything you know. There was only the void. This void was vast, truly immense. It stretched beyond imagining, a boundless expanse where even thought struggled to find purchase. It was called Ginnungagap. Ginnungagap was emptiness, not merely the absence of things, but an active, profound nothingness. It was the great, yawning chasm, a cosmic maw that swallowed all concepts of dimension and being. It knew no light, for light had not yet been conceived. It knew no sound, only the absolute, unbroken quiet of non-existence. There was no up, no down, no left, no right, just an endless, silent expanse, a profound nothingness that resonated with an almost unbearable stillness. Imagine a darkness so deep, so absolute, that it swallowed not only light, but all thought, all sensation, all memory. It was the very absence of being, a quiet, waiting place, holding a potential so vast it was almost terrifying. No stars twinkled there, for the celestial tapestry had yet to be woven. No planets spun in silent orbits, for gravity itself was an unknown concept. No sun warmed its depths, for warmth was a foreign sensation. Only the cool, still void, an infinite canvas of pure, unadulterated black. It was a place of pure potential, a canvas unpainted, waiting for the first stroke of creation. A song unsung, its melody yet to be hummed into existence. But for now, it was only silence, a profound, heavy silence that stretched into eternity. And within this silence, this vast, empty space, something was stirring. Very, very slowly, like the first, hesitant breath of a sleeping giant. It was a stirring so subtle, so gradual, that millennia would pass before it was even a whisper of movement. At the northern edge of Ginnungagap, far, far away, beyond the reach of any nascent light, lay a realm. It was called Niflheim. Niflheim was a land of ice, a world perpetually shrouded in a thick, swirling mist. It was a place of eternal cold, a realm where even the air itself seemed to crackle with frost. Its very breath was an icy exhalation, a constant, bone-chilling sigh that seeped from its depths. Jagged peaks of black ice pierced the perpetually gray sky, their surfaces slick and gleaming with ancient hoarfrost. Deep, frozen canyons snaked through the desolate landscape, echoing with the groaning of shifting glaciers. The only sound here was the relentless, silent march of the cold, a pervasive chill that permeated every atom of its being. From Niflheim, a chilling vapor drifted. It was a cold, ethereal breath, not quite visible, yet undeniably present. It crept into the void, an advance so slow it was almost imperceptible, like the first tendrils of a winter fog stealing across a sleeping landscape. Imagine a whisper of ice, a silent, creeping chill that expanded ever so gently, reluctantly, into the vast emptiness. It was the vanguard of Niflheim, a silent declaration of its dominion. This wasn't a sudden, aggressive invasion, but a patient, inexorable expansion, like a single snowflake drifting endlessly downwards, eventually joining countless others to form a blanket of white. Great rivers of ice flowed from Niflheim, not as water, but as solidified essence, slow-moving glaciers of pure, condensed cold. They were called the Oliviger, and they groaned with an ancient, resonant cold, a deep, guttural sound that would have echoed through the void if sound had existed. These colossal currents, like frozen arteries, carried within them the very essence of Niflheim, frozen vapor, tiny, glittering ice crystals, and the palpable weight of eternal winter. They stretched into the void, pushing the absolute nothingness before them, a slow, unstoppable force. The mist was thick, impenetrable. It swirled with an eerie light, a pale, ghostly luminescence that offered no warmth, only a spectral glow. It was the very essence of winter, a deep, bone-chilling cold that slowly, slowly grew, asserting its silent presence over the boundless void. And at the southern edge of Ginnungagap, equally far away, a mirror image of the North's frigidity, lay another realm. It was called Muspelheim. Muspelheim was a land of fire, a world of incandescent light, eternally ablaze. It was a place of eternal heat, a realm where even the ground pulsed with molten energy. Its very heart was flame, a ceaseless, roaring inferno that radiated boundless energy. Towers of living fire stretched into the perpetually crimson sky, their peaks spitting molten rock and brilliant sparks. Rivers of pure lava flowed across its volcanic plains, casting a searing, golden glow. The air here vibrated with intense heat, a constant, thrumming whisper of consuming power. From Muspelheim, a shimmering warmth radiated. It was a golden, fiery glow, not a harsh, blinding glare, but a gentle, expanding heat that spread like a comforting embrace. It expanded into the void, a slow, deliberate advance, like the first rays of dawn creeping over a dark horizon. Imagine a breath of warmth, a gentle, growing heat that stretched ever so softly, tentatively, into the vast emptiness. It was the silent promise of Muspelheim, a benevolent assertion of its fiery dominion. This wasn't an aggressive inferno, but a patient, inexorable expansion, like a single ember glowing brighter and brighter, eventually illuminating a vast cavern. Great sparks of fire flew from Muspelheim, not as destructive projectiles, but as tiny living stars, each carrying a miniature sun within its core. They danced into the void, tracing luminous paths through the darkness. These sparks carried bright embers, remnants of molten rock, and fiery dust, microscopic motes of pure energy. They stretched into the void, pushing the absolute nothingness before them, a slow, unstoppable force of warmth and light. The light was intense, dazzling, yet not overwhelming. It shimmered with a vibrant energy, a golden, dancing brilliance that painted the void with nascent hues of amber and crimson. It was the very essence of summer, a deep, nurturing warmth that slowly, slowly grew, asserting its vibrant presence over the boundless void. So Ginnungagap remained, the silent, waiting void. But now it was not entirely empty. No longer was it a canvas of pure black, but a vast expanse subtly divided, with the faintest hint of gray in the north and the softest blush of orange in the south. From the north, the cold crept. From the south, the warmth expanded. A slow, cosmic dance began, a celestial waltz performed on a stage of infinite potential. The chill of Niflheim moved with an ancient, ponderous grace. The heat of Muspelheim radiated with a vibrant, restless energy. They approached each other, two titanic forces, unknowingly drawn by an invisible, primordial magnet. It was not a hurried approach, no sudden collision that would shatter the nascent peace, but a gradual, inevitable convergence, a patient coming together that unfolded over timescales beyond human comprehension. It was a cosmic ballet, each side moving with an inherent, unyielding will, driven by their very essence. Millennia passed, untold eons dissolved into the vastness of Ginnungagap. Time had no meaning here, no ticking clock or aging sun. Only the steady, patient expansion, the unhurried advance of elemental forces. The mists of Niflheim stretched further, a silent, gray frontier. The sparks of Muspelheim drifted, a shimmering, golden vanguard. Closer and closer they came, the forces of ice and fire, drawn to the central, waiting heart of the void. The silence of Ginnungagap was profound, a deep, ancient quiet that pressed in on all sides. But now it held a subtle tension, a quiet anticipation, like the hush before a momentous event. The very air, if one could call it air, for it was still mostly nothingness, began to change. It was no longer pure nothingness, but held the faintest scent of possibility, a nascent charge in the empty space. A faint, almost imperceptible chill began to mingle with a soft, gentle warmth. They began to meet, not with a clash, but with a delicate, ethereal touch. Imagine a single breath of frost, crystalline and sharp, meeting a single spark of warmth, vibrant and alive, in the vast, silent void. It was the first contact, a moment pregnant with cosmic significance. The first touch was hesitant, a delicate, fleeting kiss between ice and fire. It was not a violent explosion, but a soft, almost imperceptible merging. Where the cold met the warmth, a subtle change occurred. The ice did not melt immediately, for its essence was too profound. The fire did not extinguish instantly, for its core was too intense. Instead, something new began to form, something entirely unexpected. The mist from Niflheim, heavy with ancient cold, encountered the sparks from Muspelheim, shimmering with vibrant heat. They swirled around each other, not in conflict, but in an intricate cosmic dance. The cold, rather than extinguishing, seemed to crystallize the warmth, giving it form. The warmth, rather than melting, seemed to soften the cold, preventing it from solidifying entirely. A delicate balance was struck, a precarious equilibrium of opposing forces. The Oliviger, the icy rivers, continued their slow, majestic flow, pushing their frozen essence relentlessly forward. The fiery sparks from Muspelheim continued their slow, vibrant dance, radiating their fiery essence into the growing intersection. And where they met, in that vast, central expanse of Ginnungagap, the very heart of the void, a strange, miraculous process began. The cold met the heat. The mist met the fire, not with a bang, not with a roar, not with the shattering force of a cosmic collision, but with a whisper, a gentle cosmic sigh, the very first breath of creation, soft and almost imperceptible, yet infinitely profound. It was the universe itself drawing its first, tentative inhalation. The ice began to melt, but not entirely. It softened, becoming less rigid, less absolute. The fire began to cool, but not completely. It tempered its intensity, becoming less consuming, more nurturing. Instead, a gentle steam arose, not the scalding steam of a geyser, but a soft, ethereal vapor. It shimmered in the darkness, catching the faint, nascent light from Muspelheim and reflecting the ghostly glow of Niflheim, creating a palette of soft, shifting grays and golds. This vapor was not cold. It was not hot. It was something new, something in between, a perfect synthesis of opposing forces. It held the memory of the cold, the potential of the heat, and something entirely unique born of their union. It was the first sign of life, the very first stirrings of existence in the heart of the void. A nascent promise, a delicate breath in the vastness. The silence of Ginnungagap was still deep, profound, and pervasive. But now it was filled with this soft, rising mist, a gentle, almost imperceptible hum that resonated with the delicate process of creation. A mist born of opposites, a mist born of collision, a mist born of gentle friction, a tender caress between ice and fire. The Oliviger continued to flow, their icy currents pushing forward into the meeting place, serving as the constant fuel for this new phenomenon. The sparks from Muspelheim continued to radiate, their fiery currents pushing forward, feeding the nascent warmth. The interplay was slow, deliberate, unfolding with a patient grandeur. It was the universe taking its first, tentative steps, learning to breathe, to form, to exist. Imagine watching a glacier melt, not in a fleeting moment, but in excruciating slow motion over countless ages, each drop of water a testament to the passage of time. Imagine watching a fire spread, not in a destructive blaze, but in excruciating slow motion over countless ages, each flicker of flame a gentle expansion of light and warmth. And in the middle, the new thing formed, the shimmering, gentle mist. It began to thicken, gaining substance, coalescing like a cloud forming in a clear sky. It gathered substance, drawing energy from the pure, elemental energies of Niflheim and Muspelheim. A cosmic alchemy transforming nothingness into something. The air, if one could call it air, became pregnant with possibility, heavy with the promise of form, of shape, of being. It was the very essence of potential, swirling and condensing. The cold from Niflheim was immense, a boundless reservoir of icy stillness. The heat from Muspelheim was boundless, an infinite source of fiery energy. Their meeting point was the crucible, the very heart of the void, where everything was born, where the fundamental elements of the cosmos were being forged. The mist grew. It expanded, spiraling outwards, a soft, ethereal vortex. It swirled with a gentle inner light, a luminescence that seemed to emanate from within its very core, a light that was not the harsh, consuming glare of Muspelheim, nor the pale, spectral glow of Niflheim, but a soft, nascent luminescence, a tender, nascent glow. The first hint of true light, not borrowed or reflected, but born of the very act of creation. This was the beginning, the very first moment, before anything else, before gods or worlds, before time itself truly began its march. The sound was still absent. Only the profound silence of Ginnungagap, now broken by the gentle whisper of creation, the soft sizzle of ice meeting fire, the quiet hum of nascent energy, the whispers of Ginnungagap, the soft, sibilant sound of ice meeting fire, of cold embracing warmth, of emptiness becoming promise. The ice continued its slow creep, a relentless, ancient force. The fire continued its slow expansion, a vibrant, eternal energy, and the mist continued to rise. A gentle, swirling cloud growing thicker, denser, gaining a subtle presence in the heart of the great void. It pulsed with a soft, internal rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat. It was a slow, majestic process, a cosmic ballet unfolding with infinite patience, performed in the silence of eternity for an audience of nothingness. The forces of Niflheim and Muspelheim were ancient. They were elemental. They were powerful beyond imagining. But their meeting was not one of destruction, not one of violence, not a catastrophic clash. It was one of gentle blending, of patient interaction, of slow, inevitable formation, a testament to the profound harmony that could emerge from opposing forces. The cold kissed the warmth, a tender, transformative touch. The mist embraced the fire, not consuming it, but incorporating its essence. And something new was born, something entirely unique, something that would set the stage for all that was to come. A gentle hum, almost imperceptible, began to resonate. A vibration in the void, a faint tremor in the fabric of nothingness. As the mist grew thicker, this hum grew stronger, a subtle, resonant frequency. It was the very breath of life, the first stirrings of existence. In the vast, silent chasm, life had begun its slow, deliberate unfolding. Ginnungagap held its breath, witnessing this miraculous birth. Or perhaps it exhaled, a soft, gentle sigh of contentment, the first hint of form, the first sign of substance. In the nothingness, the seeds of everything had been sown. The story had truly begun, not with a roar, not with a bang, but with a whisper of ice, a whisper of fire, meeting in the heart of the void. And the mist rose, higher and higher, thicker and thicker, coalescing, gathering, ready for what was to come, ready for the next beat. In this ancient, cosmic tale, ready for the first stirrings of life, the first breath of a being that would fill the void with existence. The swirling mists began to shift. A strange warmth, a gentle, pervasive hum entered the frigid air. It was Muspelheim's fiery breath reaching across the void. This warmth kissed the ancient ice, the ice of Niflheim. A delicate melting began. Tiny rivulets, like silver threads, traced pathways down the frozen expanse. They whispered softly as they flowed. This was no ordinary melt. It was a cosmic encounter. The ice softened, then yielded. It formed a vast, shimmering pool. Within this pool, something stirred. It was a formless mass at first, but it grew slowly, deliberately. It expanded with each passing moment. A colossal shape began to emerge. It was immense, beyond comprehension. This was Ymir. He coalesced from the melting frost. His form was truly gigantic. He seemed to stretch across the very fabric of the cosmos. Imagine a mountain range, vast and ancient. Now imagine it taking on a living form. That was Ymir's scale. He was a being of unimaginable proportions. His awakening was slow. A deep, rumbling groan escaped him. It echoed through the primordial silence. It was the sound of creation itself. He stretched. His limbs, vast as continents, extended. The movement was ponderous, deliberate. It sent ripples through the nascent universe. You could almost feel the cosmic muscles flexing. His immense frame shifted. It was a slow, powerful unfolding. He was becoming. A shiver ran through him, not of cold, but of life. It was a new sensation. He was alive. His skin if you could call it that, was like ancient ice. It shimmered with a faint, ethereal light. Deep blue veins pulsed beneath the surface. They were like frozen rivers. His breath was a cold, misty exhalation. It swirled around him. It added to the primordial atmosphere. He was a part of everything. Ymir felt a strange, new hunger. It was a deep, primal need. He sought sustenance. But from where? As Ymir stirred, another form began to emerge. From the same melting ice, a gentle creature took shape. She was graceful and serene. This was Audhumla. She was a cosmic cow. Her coat was the color of starlight. It shimmered with an inner glow. Her eyes were deep pools of tranquil wisdom. They held the calm of the ages. She was a vision of peace. Audhumla was life-giving. She embodied nourishment. Her presence was a comforting balm. She was a source of gentle power. She lowed softly. It was a deep, resonant sound. It echoed through the nascent void. It was a lullaby for the universe. And from her udders, 4 rivers of milk flowed. They glistened with a pearly luminescence. They were pure and life-sustaining. Ymir, in his vastness, sensed her presence. He instinctively turned towards her. His immense head lowered. He was drawn to the milk. He began to drink. The milk flowed into him. It was a steady, nourishing stream. It filled his vast emptiness. His hunger began to subside. A sense of contentment settled over him. It was a feeling of peaceful sustenance. He was being nourished. Audhumla continued to low gently. She watched over him. Her presence was a silent comfort. She was the cosmic nurturer. As Ymir drank, the very act of his existence caused a strange phenomenon. The warmth of Audhumla's milk, meeting the chill of his icy form, created condensation. It was the beginning of something new. Tiny beads of moisture appeared on his skin. They shimmered like dewdrops. But these were no ordinary dewdrops. They were sweat, from his armpits specifically. It was a strange, unexpected origin. And from this sweat, life began to emerge. They were not fully formed at first, just vague shapes, but they grew quickly. They took on distinct forms. These were the first frost giants. They were born of Ymir's sweat. They were his immediate progeny. They were the first of their kind. One emerged from his left armpit, another from his right. They were rough, crude beings. They were born of the elements. They were not gentle. Their forms were craggy. They were like miniature mountains. They embodied the harshness of the ice. Their eyes gleamed with a primal cunning. They were beings of raw power. They were the children of the frost. From his legs, 2 more beings stirred. They were smaller, perhaps, but no less formidable. They were the first of the frost giant clans. Ymir continued to drink. He was oblivious to his own creation. His focus was on the nourishment. He was being sustained. Audhumla, meanwhile, began her own search for sustenance. She licked at the salty ice. It was a primal urge. She sought her own nourishment. As she licked, something else began to emerge. From the ice, a form appeared. It was gradual, painstaking. It was a part of the greater creation. This was the first man, Barry. He was not born fully formed. He emerged slowly from the ice, licked into being by Autumnla. His form was rough. He was ancient. He was the grandfather of the gods. He was the beginning of their lineage. Ymir, the vast giant, continued to grow. The milk nourished him. He stretched even further. His presence dominated the void. His immense body was a landscape. Valleys and peaks, oceans of ice. He was a living world. He dreamed. His dreams were vast and formless. They were the dreams of the cosmos. They held the potential of all things. The frost giants, his children, began to explore. They were curious. They moved across his vast form. They were the first inhabitants. They were rough. They were strong. They were the essence of the primal world. They were born of sweat and ice. They began to whisper. Their voices were like the grinding of glaciers. They spoke of the cold. They spoke of the vastness. Ymir's breath continued to swirl. It created mists. These mists were the first atmosphere. They were the beginning of the air. The interaction of fire and ice continued. It was a constant dance, a cosmic ballet. It was the engine of creation. Muspelheim's warmth kept the ice melting. Niflheim's cold kept it from evaporating. It was a delicate balance. It was a perfect harmony. The milk flowed from Autumnla. It sustained Ymir. It allowed him to grow. It allowed him to birth. The first frost giants began to multiply. They were not many at first, but they were the beginning. They were the first family. They were a stark contrast to Autumnla. She was gentle. She was life-giving. They were harsh. They were primal. Ymir was a silent observer. He was the recipient of sustenance. He was the unwitting creator. He was the first being. The world was still formless, but it was gaining substance. It was gaining life. It was gaining purpose. The sounds were few. The lowing of Autumnla, the rumbling of Ymir, the whispers of the frost giants, the gentle melt of the ice. It was a symphony of creation, a quiet, profound symphony. It was the sound of the universe coming into being. The frost giants were restless. They moved. They explored. They were the first sentient beings after Ymir. They were the first to truly see Asterisk. They saw the vastness of their father. They saw the gentle cow. They saw the swirling mists. They saw the nascent world. They were born of a strange alchemy. Sweat and ice, a product of elemental interaction, a testament to creation's unexpected sources. Who could have imagined? From a giant's bodily fluid, from the meeting of fire and ice, such life could spring forth. It was a lesson. Life finds a way, even in the most unlikely of places, even from the most unexpected of origins. The world was still dark, but a faint light began to emanate. It was from Audhumla. It was from Ymir's own immense form, the first stirrings of light, the first whispers of warmth, the first hints of form. It was all beginning. Ymir continued to dream. Vast, expansive dreams. Dreams of mountains. Dreams of oceans. Dreams of skies. The frost giants, his children, were already adapting. They thrived in the cold. They were at home in the ice. They were a formidable race. They were the first inhabitants. They were the original beings. They were the embodiment of the cold. Audhumla continued to lick the ice. She was patient. She was persistent. She was the nurturer of the first god. The cosmos was a canvas, and these beings were the first strokes. They were the first colors. They were the first forms. The story was unfolding, slowly, deliberately, with a gentle, unhurried pace, just as it should. Ymir's immense size was a wonder. He was a living landscape, a world unto himself, a foundation for all that would follow. His awakening was a cosmic tremor, his breathing a primordial wind, his presence an undeniable force. He was the first, and Audhumla, the gentle cow. She was the sustenance. She was the life-giver. She was the quiet force of creation. Together they were the beginning, the giant and the cow, the vast and the gentle, the ice and the milk, a strange, beautiful duality, both essential, both powerful, both part of the grand design, the cosmic plan. The frost giants whispered. Their voices were like the creaking of ancient icebergs. They were the first sounds of sentience. They were born of sweat, a humble origin, but a powerful one. It showed that greatness could come from anywhere. The world was still a mystery, but it was a living mystery. It was breathing. It was growing. It was becoming. And all of this in the silence, in the vastness, in the primordial void. It was all unfolding. The story was just beginning. This was but a small part, a crucial part, the birth of the first beings, the slow, deliberate pace of creation, the gentle unfolding, the quiet emergence of life. It was all perfect. Ymir stretched again. A slow, vast movement. It was a sign of his immense power, his growing strength. He was fully formed now, a being of immense scale, a silent, powerful presence. He was the first giant. Audhumla continued to low. A soft, reassuring sound. It was the sound of peace, the sound of life. The world was waiting, waiting for more, waiting for the next chapter, waiting for the gods. But for now, there was Ymir, and Audhumla, and the first frost giants, and the sweet, nourishing milk, the silent, vast expanse of Ginnungagap. It was no longer empty. It was filled with life. It was filled with potential. The elemental forces had done their work. Fire and ice. They had created. They had birthed. They had begun. The first beings were here. And the story, the great story, had truly begun. Gentle, unhurried, just as it should be. Drift with these images. the vastness of Ymir, the gentleness of Audhumla, the quiet emergence of life. Let these thoughts carry you into the soft, dark night, into the realm of dreams, where all things are possible and all stories unfold slowly, beautifully, just like this one. In the quiet of the night, the great cow, Audhumla, stood patiently. Her warm breath misted the cold air. A deep rumble vibrated in her chest. It was a sound of contentment, a sound of gentle hunger. Her large, liquid eyes surveyed the vast, icy plains. There was no grass here. There were no sweet herbs. Only the endless, shimmering ice stretched before her, an expanse of frozen stillness. Audhumla lowered her immense head. Her soft muzzle brushed against the rime-covered surface. A chill permeated her gentle skin, but she was not deterred. She extended her long, pink tongue. It was a broad, flat tool. It was a tool of gentle sustenance. Her tongue scraped lightly across the salty ice. A thin layer of frost dissolved. The ice beneath gleamed faintly. Audhumla licked again, slowly, rhythmically. It was a steady, deliberate motion. She sought the vital minerals hidden within the frozen landscape. Each lick was purposeful. Each lick was a search for life. Her powerful tongue worked tirelessly. A soft, scraping sound filled the silence. It was a sound of gentle industry. It was the only sound for a long time. The ice yielded its bounty. Audhumla continued her quiet work. Her large body remained still. Only her head moved gently from side to side. Her breath plumed softly in the frigid air. Days melted into nights. Weeks turned into months. Audhumla licked the salty rime. She licked with unwavering dedication. She licked with a quiet persistence. Then one day, something shifted. It was a subtle change. It was a tiny variation in the ice. A faint, dark speck appeared. Audhumla paused her licking. Her massive head tilted slightly. Her eyes, usually so calm, held a flicker of curiosity. What was this new thing? She lowered her head once more. Her tongue extended. It touched the dark speck. The speck was firm. It was not ice. She licked around it carefully. She licked with increased focus. The dark speck grew larger. It became more defined. It revealed a texture. It was coarse. It was dark. It was unmistakably hair. A tuft of hair emerged from the ice. It was tangled and matted. Audhumla continued her gentle work. She licked more vigorously now. Her broad tongue scraped away the ice. More hair appeared. It was a dark, rich brown. A shape began to form. It was a rounded shape. It was the curve of a head. A brow began to reveal itself. It was strong and noble. Audhumla licked away the remaining ice. Bit by bit, the head emerged. Two closed eyes became visible. A strong nose appeared. A firm jawline developed. It was a man's head. It was a face of great dignity. It was a face of profound peace. The man remained still. He was frozen in slumber. Audhumla continued her patient task. She licked down the man's neck. She licked across his broad shoulders. Her tongue moved with gentle precision. The man's chest began to appear. It was muscular and powerful. It was the chest of a mighty being. His arms slowly revealed themselves. His hands were strong. They were clasped loosely. They rested against his side. Every detail emerged with painstaking slowness. It was a grand unveiling. Audhumla licked his legs. She licked his feet. Finally, the entire man stood revealed. He was tall and imposing. He was magnificent to behold. He was majestic in his stillness. He was a being of pure light. He was the first of the gods. His name was Barry. Barry's eyes remained closed. His breath was shallow. He still slept deeply. He was awakening from an ancient slumber. He was stirring from the void. Audhumla nudged him gently. Her warm muzzle touched his arm. A soft sigh escaped Barry's lips. His eyelids fluttered. They slowly opened. His eyes were the color of the deepest ocean. They held ancient wisdom. They held quiet power. He looked at Audhumla. He saw her gentle gaze. A faint smile touched his lips. It was a smile of gratitude. It was a smile of recognition. He slowly pushed himself upright. He stood tall. His movements were fluid. They were graceful. They were powerful. He stretched his mighty limbs. The air crackled with his energy. Barry looked out across the vast, icy expanse. He saw the shimmering rime. He saw the endless, silent plains. He felt the chill in the air, but he felt no cold. He felt no discomfort. He felt only a deep sense of belonging. He was here. He was alive. He turned back to Audhumla. He reached out a hand. He gently stroked her massive head. His touch was warm. It was reassuring. "Great Mother," he rumbled. His voice was deep. It was resonant. It echoed across the frozen landscape. "You have brought me forth." Audhumla lowed softly. It was a sound of affirmation. It was a sound of love. She nudged his hand once more. She accepted his gratitude. Barry stood in silent contemplation. He absorbed the world around him. He felt the raw power of Ginnungagap. He felt the primal forces at play. He was the first god. He was the progenitor. He was the beginning of a divine lineage. He was strong. He was noble. And he was good. His heart was pure. His spirit was just. He embodied the qualities of a benevolent ruler. He was destined for greatness. Barry knew he was not alone. He felt a presence. He felt a connection. He felt the stirrings of a new life within him. He knew his purpose. He knew his destiny. He knew he must continue the line. He must ensure the future. He must bring forth more life. Time passed. Barry walked the icy plains. He explored the vast emptiness. He contemplated the mysteries of creation. He sought his path. Then, from within him, a new being emerged. It was not through ice. It was not through licking. It was through a different kind of magic. It was the magic of creation. It was the magic of divine will. It was the magic of pure intention. A son was born to Barry. His name was Bor. Bor was strong. He was just. He was as noble as his father. He inherited Barry's wisdom. He inherited his power. Bor stood beside Barry. He was a reflection of his father. He was a continuation of the divine spark. He was the next generation. Bor's eyes were bright. They held youthful vigor. They held boundless potential. He looked at his father with reverence. He looked with love. Barry placed a hand on Bor's shoulder. It was a gesture of pride. It was a gesture of blessing. It was a gesture of shared destiny. "My son," Barry said. His voice was full of emotion. "You are the future. You are the strength. You are the hope." Bor nodded solemnly. He accepted the weight of his lineage. He accepted the responsibility. He accepted his place in the unfolding saga. The two gods stood together. They stood against the backdrop of the vast, empty world. They were beacons of light. They were symbols of order. They were a stark contrast to the chaotic giants. The giants were born of ice. They were born of fire. They were creatures of primal force. But Barry and Bor were different. They were born of gentle sustenance. They were born of pure intention. They were beings of innate goodness. Their presence brought balance. Their presence brought hope. Their presence promised a future of order, a future of creation. Audhumla watched them. Her large eyes were peaceful. Her soft breathing filled the air. She had fulfilled her purpose. She had brought forth life. She had nourished the first god. She had witnessed the birth of the second. She had played her part in the grand design. She was content. The world was still raw. It was still unformed. It was still a canvas. But now, divine beings walked upon it. They brought purpose. They brought direction. They brought the promise of something more. The story of creation had truly begun. It was a slow, majestic unfolding. Barry and Bor began to explore their world. They walked across the icy plains. They felt the biting winds. They embraced the vastness. They spoke of their purpose. They spoke of their future. They spoke of the world they would shape. They spoke of the life they would create. Their voices were deep. They were harmonious. They resonated with power. They were the voices of the gods. They were the voices of creation. The silence of Ginnungagap was slowly fading. It was being replaced by sound. It was being replaced by life. It was being replaced by divine will. The gentle licking of Audhumla had set it all in motion. Her simple act had profound consequences. Her quiet persistence had birthed a new era. The Rhymice continued to yield its bounty. Audhumla continued to graze. Her presence was a comforting constant. Her gentle form a reminder of life. Barry and Bor stood side by side. Their figures were strong. Their spirits were unwavering. They were ready for what was to come. They were ready to shape the world. They were ready to bring forth more life. They were ready to establish their reign. They were the first of the Aesir. Their story had just begun. It was a story of power. It was a story of purpose. It was a story of creation. It was a story of gods. And the quiet hum of Audhumla's contentment continued to be the soundtrack. It was a lullaby. It was a promise. It was the rhythm of creation. The world was vast. It was empty, but it was no longer lifeless. It held the presence of the divine. It held the promise of a glorious future. Beri the father bore the son. The lineage was established. The foundation was laid. The journey had truly begun. The cosmos awaited their touch. They were the first light. They were the first order. They were the first of a long and storied line. Their existence brought profound meaning. The icy expanse seemed less daunting now. It seemed less desolate. It held the potential for beauty. It held the potential for life. All thanks to a gentle cow. All thanks to her patient licking. All thanks to the slow, wondrous unveiling of the first god. A miracle. A quiet, profound miracle. A miracle of gentle emergence. A miracle of divine birth. The world was awakening. The gods were here. The vast, echoing expanse of Ginnungagap still swirled, a primordial soup of silver-gray mists and nascent energies. It was a place of profound silence, broken only by the whisper of the swirling void and the occasional, distant groan of shifting ice. From this swirling emptiness, a new lineage began, one born not of the chaotic frost, but of a quiet longing. Bor, the first son of Beri, felt a deep, stirring loneliness that resonated through the immense, formless expanse. He looked out at the endless, undulating expanse, where ethereal light sometimes shimmered on the surface of frozen, formless waters, and a profound yearning filled his heart. He sought companionship in the desolate, icy lands, where frigid winds, sharp as glass shards, bit at his skin. His gaze, accustomed to the stark beauty of the void, fell upon Bislav, a daughter of the frost giants. She was unlike her kin, who moved with a clumsy, ponderous gait, and whose voices were like the cracking of glaciers. Bislav's eyes held a quiet, knowing depth, like still pools reflecting the distant starlight, and her hair, like spun moonlight, flowed around her shoulders, catching the faint, ambient glow of Ginnungagap. There was a delicate strength to her, a subtle grace that set her apart from the raw, unfocused energy of her family. La, though a giantess, possessed a gentle spirit, a warmth that seemed to defy the pervasive cold. She was not consumed by the primal, unthinking urges that drove her brethren. Bor saw in her a kindred soul, a quiet harbor in the storm of creation. Their union was unexpected, a whisper of harmony amidst the chaos, a fragile bloom in the heart of desolation. It was a union born not of brute force or instinct, but of shared understanding and a mutual, unspoken desire for connection. They found a quiet, sheltered place within the vast, indifferent void, a pocket of stillness where the biting winds softened into a gentle caress. It was a place where the ice seemed to soften, its sharp edges blurring into a translucent sheen, and where the mists parted just enough to reveal a hint of warmth, like a faint, internal glow. There, amidst the primordial silence, they built a home of sorts. It was a home not of stone or wood, for such materials did not yet exist, but of shared glances and quiet understanding. Bislav brought a calm presence to Bor's thoughtful demeanor, a grounding serenity that settled his restless spirit. Their love, a tender, resilient flame, bloomed in that desolate, ancient world, defying the bleakness with its quiet strength. Soon the first of their children was born, a being of astonishing vitality. His name was Odin, a strong and curious spirit whose eyes, even in infancy, seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Then came Vili, with a quiet strength that belied his thoughtful nature, his presence a steady anchor. And finally, V, who possessed a keen, discerning eye, always noticing the intricate patterns and subtle shifts in the nascent world. These three sons were unlike any beings before them. They were not giants, in the crude, unwieldy sense, but beings of a new order, something more refined, more purposeful. Their minds were active even from the earliest days, alight with an inner luminescence that seemed to pierce the surrounding gloom. Odin, with his piercing gaze, observed everything, absorbing the world with an insatiable hunger for knowledge. He was a sponge for truth, his young mind already forming connections others could not perceive. Vili, though more reserved, pondered deeply, his brow often furrowed in quiet contemplation. He sought to understand the underlying patterns, the hidden currents that governed the chaotic flow of Ginnungagap. V, the youngest, saw the intricate details, noticing the subtle shifts in the swirling mists, the minute crystalline formations in the ancient ice, the faint echoes of emerging life. They grew quickly in that strange, burgeoning world, their childhood spent exploring the vast, formless expanse. They watched the frost giants from a distance, their immense, lumbering forms moving like shadows in the perpetual twilight. Their movements were clumsy, their desires simple and driven by instinct, their guttural roars echoing across the frozen plains. Ymir, the giant progenitor, still lay sprawled, his immense form a sprawling landmass of frozen flesh and bone. From his armpits and legs, more giants were constantly being born, each new being a crude copy of the last. They were driven by instinct, by hunger, and the gnawing cold, their lives a cycle of brute existence. Odin, Vili, and V observed their chaotic existence, the constant, unfocused growth, the endless proliferation of mindless beings. The giants multiplied without purpose or direction, their lives a perpetual struggle for scraps of existence. They fought amongst themselves over the meager resources of the void, their skirmishes loud and brutal, yet devoid of any true malice, merely the unthinking clash of primal forces. "Look, brother," Odin would whisper, his voice soft, almost lost in the vastness. "They just exist." He gestured towards a group of giants wrestling in a cloud of icy vapor, their monstrous forms colliding with dull thuds. There was no strategy, no true anger, just raw, unthinking force, like boulders tumbling down a slope. The air around them crackled with a cold, static energy. Billy would nod slowly, his brow furrowed, a deep consideration in his thoughtful eyes. "They have no thought for tomorrow," he would say, his voice quiet, but filled with a deep understanding of their limitations. Only for this moment and the next meal. His words hung in the frigid air, a stark commentary on the giants' unexamined lives. V, with his sharp eyes, noticed the details, the subtle imperfections that defined their existence. "See how their forms shift," he would point out. "They are not truly defined by anything." He was right. The giants often seemed to melt back into the chaotic mists from which they came, their forms fluid and impermanent, like sculptures of melting ice. Their parents, Bor and Bisla, watched their sons with a quiet pride, a profound understanding of the unique qualities that set them apart. Their wisdom, their curiosity, their inherent sense of order, these were gifts unlike any other, seeds of a future they could only dimly perceive. Bisla would often tell them stories of the ancient mists, of the chaotic beginnings of Ginnungagap, her voice a soothing melody against the background hum of the void. Bor would speak of the quiet strength of Barry, their grandfather, instilling in them a sense of lineage, of the deep roots from which they sprang. "You are not like them," Bisla would often say, her voice gentle as a summer breeze, though no such thing existed yet. She would touch their faces with a loving hand, her touch a warmth against the cold. "You have a purpose within you." Her words were a balm, a quiet encouragement that resonated deeply within their young hearts, a promise of something more. Odin, Vili, and V felt this purpose stirring within them, a faint whisper at first, like the distant rustle of unseen wings. It was a sense that something needed to be done, that the world, in its current formless, chaotic state, lacked structure and meaning. It was an incomplete tapestry, waiting for a guiding hand. They would spend hours observing Ymir, his vast, slumbering form stretched across the void like a primal mountain range. From his armpits and legs, more giants were constantly being born, crude, unthinking beings with no true will, their minds as blank as the surrounding mists. "He is like a spring," Odin mused one day, his gaze distant and thoughtful, already seeing beyond the immediate. Always flowing, never ending. He traced an invisible line in the air, contemplating the endless, unceasing creation. Vili considered this with a quiet intensity, his thoughts like slow-moving currents. "But what does it flow into?" he asked, his questions always insightful, always seeking depth. "Only more of itself, it seems." V, ever observant, noticed the patterns of decay and renewal. "Look at the ice around him," he pointed out. "It is constantly shifting, constantly breaking." He saw the impermanence of the giant's existence, the inherent instability of their chaotic birth. The three brothers would often gather together, their forms huddled against the pervasive chill. They would sit in silence for long periods, their minds working, processing the vast, incomprehensible nature of their surroundings. They were formulating a grand design, a vision that was still hazy, but growing clearer with each passing moment. They saw the potential within the void, the raw material that lay dormant. The endless mists, thick as spun silver, the primordial ice, ancient and deep. It was all there, waiting. But it lacked a guiding hand, a conscious will to sculpt it into something meaningful. We could bring order, Odin declared one day, his voice firm and resolute, cutting through the silence of Ginnungagap. It was the first time such a bold thought had been uttered aloud, a spark igniting in the darkness. Vili looked at him, his eyes widening slightly with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Order, he repeated the word, as if tasting its foreignness. It was a concept unheard of in this chaotic, formless world. Yes, Odin affirmed, his gaze steady and unwavering. Structure, purpose, a world that is not just born, but created. He spoke with conviction, with a growing power that seemed to hum in the air around them. V, ever practical, considered the immense implications. But how, brother? He asked, his voice grounded in reality. What would we use to build such a world? His questions were always the anchor, pulling their grand ideas back to the tangible. Odin's eyes held a faraway look, as if he were seeing beyond their current reality, envisioning something grand and magnificent. We will use what is here, he said simply, his voice filled with a quiet certainty. Their conversations became more frequent, more intense, filling the quiet void with the hum of their collective thoughts. They discussed the very nature of the world, the chaotic giants, the swirling mists, and the immense potential that lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. They noticed the stark lack of structure in the giants' lives. They lived by instinct, by simple urges of hunger and survival. There was no culture, no shared understanding, no true connection beyond crude reproduction. Their existence was a bleak, unexamined cycle. They do not speak of the past, Vili observed, his voice tinged with a quiet sadness. Nor do they plan for the future. He saw the profound emptiness in their existence, the absence of memory and aspiration. He added, his voice sharp with observation. Their lives are short and brutal. He had witnessed countless skirmishes, giants disappearing into the mists, forgotten as quickly as they were born, their brief lives leaving no trace. A profound sense of destiny began to form within them. Not a choice, but an inevitability, a deep calling that resonated in their very beings. They felt a profound responsibility to bring change, to shape the chaos into something meaningful, something enduring. Their parents, Bor and Bisla, watched them with quiet understanding, their hearts swelling with a mixture of pride and a gentle melancholy, knowing their sons were meant for greatness, for a path that would lead them far beyond their humble home. They had instilled in them the seeds of wisdom, nurtured them with love and guidance. Bor would often tell them of Barry's solitary existence, the immense strength of their grandfather who had emerged from the ice alone. He was alone in his strength, he would say, his voice deep and resonant. But you three are together. He emphasized their unbreakable bond, their shared purpose, the power of their unity. Bislaw would speak of the deeper currents, of the hidden energies within Ginnungagap, the primordial forces that stirred beneath the surface. She encouraged them to listen to the whispers of the ancient void, to feel the pulse of creation. Odin, Vili, and Vi listened intently, absorbing every word, every nuance, their minds like sponges soaking up knowledge, shaping their understanding of the nascent cosmos. They continued to observe the chaotic world around them. Ymir's vast form still generated giants, their guttural roars echoing across the emptiness. The primordial cow, Authambla, still licked the salty ice, her immense tongue freeing more crude beings from the blocks, beings of raw instinct and little else. The world was a raw, untamed place, filled with immense potential, but also profound danger. The ice giants were strong, but mindless, a force of nature to be reckoned with, their strength a constant, unthinking threat. We must be careful, Vili cautioned one day, his voice a quiet reminder of their vulnerability. They are many, and we are few. His words hung in the cold air, a recognition of the immense odds they faced. Odin nodded, his expression serious, his gaze unwavering. But we have something they do not, he said, his voice filled with quiet conviction. We have thought and purpose. He knew their advantage lay not in brute strength, but in the power of their minds. Vi, with his discerning eye, recognized the patterns in the giant's chaos. They are creatures of habit, he noted, his voice sharp with insight, predictable in their chaos. He saw their weaknesses, their blind spots, the cracks in their unthinking existence. The first stirrings of a grand plan began to take shape in their minds, a bold, audacious concept that would change the very fabric of existence. It was a vision of a world transformed, a world born not of accident, but of conscious design. They envisioned a world with order, with structure and meaning, a place where beings could thrive beyond mere survival, a world where life could flourish, where beauty and purpose could emerge from the primordial chaos. They knew it would be difficult, perhaps even dangerous. The giants would resist their attempts at order, for they were creatures of chaos, knowing no other way. Their very existence was antithetical to the brothers' vision, but Odin, Vili, and Vi were resolute, their purpose clear. They felt a deep responsibility to the void, to the immense potential that lay dormant within it. They were the architects of a new age, the shapers of a destiny, yet unwritten. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, forged in the shared fire of their grand ambition. They were not just brothers, but partners in a grand, cosmic endeavor. each complementing the other in their unique strengths. Odin, the visionary leader, Vili, the ponderer with his deep wisdom, V, the keen observer with his sharp insight. Together, they were a formidable force, a perfect trinity. They continued to learn from their parents, from Bor's quiet strength and Bislaz's gentle wisdom, absorbing the lessons of the ancient world, the echoes of creation. They understood the immense power of creation and the profound responsibility that came with it. They were not just born, but chosen to shape the destiny of the cosmos, to bring forth a new reality. The world was waiting for their touch, for their guiding hand. The mists swirled, thick and expectant, the ice groaned, a sound of ancient anticipation. A new era was about to begin, an age of order and purpose. The three brothers looked out at the vast expanse, their minds already busy with the blueprints of a world yet to be built, a world born of their collective will. The air crackled with a nascent energy, a silent hum of creation. Their destiny was clear, their path laid out before them. They were the creators, the shapers, the bringers of order to the chaos. The first steps of a grand design were about to be taken. They stood together, united in purpose, their gazes fixed on the swirling void, ready to face the challenges ahead, to sculpt the formless into form. The world was waiting, and they were ready. Their journey had just begun. The three brothers stood together. They watched the swirling mists. Ginnungagap stretched endlessly before them. Its formless expanse held no comfort. Only the cold, damp air touched their faces. A profound silence lay over everything. It was a silence that spoke of nothingness. It whispered of all that was not. Ymir the giant sprawled in the distance. His form was immense. It was a mountain of flesh. The frost giants, his children, stirred around him. They were grotesque, misshapen forms. Their movements were clumsy and slow. They lumbered through the icy fog. Their grunts echoed faintly. They were sounds of raw existence. Odin, the eldest, felt a deep unease. His single eye surveyed the scene. It was an eye that saw beyond the surface. He saw the potential for more, but he also saw the overwhelming chaos. This chaos was a heavy blanket. It smothered any hope of beauty. It stifled any chance of growth. Vili, the middle brother, shared his thoughts. He traced patterns in the frost. His brow was furrowed in concentration. He imagined structures. He pictured ordered forms, but the mists dissolved his visions. They melted away like breath on a cold window. The world offered no purchase. V, the youngest, stood quietly. He absorbed the atmosphere. He felt the raw, untamed energy. It was a wild, unpredictable force. It pulsed through Ginnungagap. He understood its power, but he also sensed its emptiness. It was a power without purpose. It was strength without direction. This cannot continue, Odin finally spoke. His voice was soft. It was a murmur in the vastness, yet it carried a quiet authority. It cut through the silence. It broke the spell of contemplation. His words hung in the chilling air. Billy nodded slowly. The emptiness it is consuming. He gestured vaguely. His hand swept across the void. There is no form, there is no shape, only the endless, swirling chaos. His voice held a hint of despair. It was a quiet resignation. And the giants, Vi added. His gaze was steady. He looked towards Ymir. They are born of this chaos. They embody its wildness. They are a force of nature, but they offer no solace. They bring no peace. His words were a quiet assessment. Odin turned slightly. He faced his brothers. His expression was solemn. We have seen what is asterisk. His voice was thoughtful. Now we must consider what could be. He paused, letting the thought settle. It was a profound idea. Billy's eyes brightened slightly. A world, he whispered. A place of order. A realm of beauty. His imagination began to stir. He saw visions of green fields. He pictured clear, flowing rivers. He envisioned towering, majestic trees. V's lips curved into a small smile. And light, he added softly. Not just the dim glow of the mists, but a true, radiant light. He dreamed of sunbeams. He imagined the gentle moon. He saw the twinkling stars. Yes, Odin affirmed. His voice grew stronger. A place where life can flourish, where thoughts can take root, where stories can be told. He spoke of a new beginning. He envisioned a vibrant future. It was a powerful, compelling vision. But then a shadow crossed his face. His gaze returned to Ymir. The vast, inert form lay before them. The frost giants stirred lazily. Their very existence was a barrier. It was an obstacle to their dreams. But how? Vili asked. His hope began to waver. The reality of their situation pressed in. The enormity of the task weighed heavily. How do we bring order to this shapeless void? He struggled for answers. And what of asterisk them? V indicated the giants. His voice was quiet. They are part of this chaos. They are woven into its fabric. Can order exist alongside such wildness? His question was a difficult one. Odin took a deep breath. The cold air filled his lungs. It was a moment of profound decision. To create, he began slowly. His words were measured. We must first make a choice. His voice was grave. He looked at his brothers. Their faces reflected his own concern. They understood the gravity of his unspoken thought. The air grew heavy with unspoken meaning. A difficult truth hovered between them. Ymir, Odin said, his voice barely a whisper. He is the source. He is the essence of this formless chaos. He paused again. The words were hard to speak. They carried immense weight. Vili's eyes widened. He understood. A tremor ran through him. The implications were vast. They were terrifying. This was not a simple choice. It was an act of immense consequence. V's expression became grim. He looked at the slumbering giant. He saw the immense power. He understood the necessary sacrifice. His heart felt a pang of sadness. It was a difficult path. To build a world, Odin continued. His voice was firm now. We must use what is available. We must transform the existing. He spoke of creation through transformation. It was a bold concept, but to confront him, Vili's voice was strained. He is immense. He is ancient. His power is beyond reckoning. He remembered the raw force. He recalled the immense size. It was a daunting prospect. It is not an act of malice, Odin clarified. His voice was gentle. It is an act of necessity, a choice for creation, not for destruction, but for building. He emphasized the purpose. The intent was pure. We do not seek to end life, Vi added softly, but to begin another kind of life, a life of purpose, a life of beauty. He understood the distinction. It was a subtle, yet crucial difference. Odin nodded. His essence, it holds the potential, the raw materials, the very fabric of what will be. He spoke of Ymir's body. He saw it as a canvas. He envisioned it as a foundation. He looked at his brothers, his gaze searching. Are you with me? His voice was low. It was a plea for unity. It was an invitation to a shared destiny. This was a decision for all three. Vili met his gaze. He saw the conviction there. He saw the unwavering vision. The fear was still present, but it was overshadowed by something greater. It was eclipsed by hope. Yes, Vili said, his voice stronger now. For a world of order, for a place of beauty. He imagined the possibilities. He pictured the vibrant life. He saw the new beginning. Vi stepped closer. His hand rested on Odin's arm. For light, he affirmed. His voice was quiet. For stories to be told. He dreamed of a world full of meaning. He envisioned a place of wonder. A quiet resolve settled upon them. The decision was made. It was a momentous choice. It was born not of anger. It was not fueled by vengeance. It was driven by a deep desire. They longed for structure. They yearned for beauty. They dreamed of a place where life could thrive, a place where meaning could take root. This was their motivation. This was their purpose. They stood together, three brothers. They faced the vastness of Ginnungagap. Ymir lay before them. The frost giants stirred. The cold, damp air swirled around them, but within them a fire had been lit. It was the fire of creation. It was the spark of purpose. It was the unwavering will to build. They knew the task was immense. They understood the sacrifice required. But the vision was clear. A world awaited. A world of order. A world of light. And they, the first gods, would bring it forth. They would transform the chaos. They would shape the void. They would build the world. The mists seemed to swirl more intensely. The air grew colder. A low rumble emanated from Ymir. It was the sound of ancient power. It was the stirrings of an immense being. But the brothers did not falter. Their resolve was firm. Their purpose was clear. They were ready for the confrontation. They were prepared for the transformation. They were ready to create. Their minds were filled with blueprints. They envisioned mountains. They saw oceans. They pictured the sky. All these things would spring from the existing. All would be born from the chaos. This was not an act of war. It was an act of artistry. It was a grand design. It was the ultimate act of creation. And it began with this difficult, necessary choice. The silence of Ginnungagap continued. But now, it was a silence pregnant with possibility. It was a quiet hum of anticipation. It was the sound of a world waiting to be born. The three brothers remained still. They absorbed the moment. They embraced the enormity. They prepared their hearts. They steeled their wills. The task lay before them. Their shared vision burned brightly. It illuminated the darkness. It banished the despair. It was a beacon of hope. It guided their steps. It strengthened their resolve. They would face Ymir. They would confront the chaos. They would make the ultimate sacrifice. And from it, a world would rise. A world of their own making. A world of order and beauty. The air grew heavy with the weight of destiny. The mists seemed to part slightly. A faint, ethereal light shimmered. It was a hint of what was to come. It was a promise of the future. And so the stage was set. The decision was made. The path was clear. The first act of creation was about to unfold. It would be a moment of immense power. It would be a moment of profound change. The ancient, slumbering giant remained unaware. His vast form lay still. The frost giants moved around him. They were oblivious to the fate that awaited. They were unaware of the coming transformation. But the three brothers knew. They understood the gravity. They accepted the burden. And they were ready. They were ready to build. They were ready to bring forth a world. Their hands clenched into fists. Their breaths were steady. Their eyes held a quiet determination. They were the architects of a new reality. They were the bringers of order. And as the cold wind whispered, it carried their silent promise. A promise of creation. A promise of life. A promise of a world born from the void. A world of beauty and light. The three brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve, stood before Ymir. Their forms, though mighty, seemed small indeed. They were but specks against his colossal frame. Ymir slept still, his breath a frigid gale. It stirred the primal mists around them. The air thrummed with a strange, deep hum. This was not a sound born of battle. It was a resonance of destiny. Odin stepped forward first. His eyes, even then, held the wisdom of ages. He gazed upon Ymir not with fear, but with a profound understanding. Vili and Ve followed close behind. Their faces were solemn. They knew the gravity of this moment. This was not an act of malice. It was a necessary, sacred task. The very fabric of reality depended upon it. Ymir's massive chest rose and fell. Each breath was a geological event. Mountains might have been born from such an exhalation. The giant's skin was like ancient, weathered stone. It was rough, it was scarred. Odin lifted his hand slowly. There was no weapon in it, no blade, no spear. Only an ethereal light began to gather. It pulsed gently, a soft, cosmic glow. This light was pure creation. It was pure potential. Vili and V mirrored his gesture. Their hands, too, began to emanate soft light. The three lights merged. They swirled together. They formed a single, radiant sphere. It was not blinding, it was comforting. They approached Ymir's vast form. The ground beneath their feet was cold. It was hard. It was the very essence of primeval ice. Ymir's skin, when they touched it, felt like the oldest mountain. It was cold. It was unyielding. The glowing sphere pressed against his chest. It sank slowly into his flesh. There was no resistance. Ymir did not stir. He did not cry out. It was as if he welcomed this final, transformative embrace. A warmth spread from the point of contact. It was a warmth that was not heat. It was a warmth that was life. It was a warmth that was change. It began to suffuse Ymir's enormous body. His skin, once like stone, softened slightly. A faint tremor ran through his limbs. It was not a tremor of pain. It was a tremor of transition. It was the tremor of an ending. It was the tremor of a beginning. The light intensified within him. It spread like a gentle tide. It reached his extremities. It reached his very core. Ymir's immense form began to glow from within. It was a soft, internal radiance. Then, very slowly, his eyes opened. They were vast pools. They reflected the nascent light of the cosmos. There was no anger in them. There was no fear. There was only a profound, ancient knowing. He looked at the three brothers. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. It was a silent understanding. This was the way it had to be. This was the cosmic design. A deep sigh escaped his lips. It was a sigh that spanned eternities. It was a sigh that carried the weight of all that was. It was a sigh that released all that would be. And then his colossal form began to dissolve. Not violently, not with a sudden explosion, but gently, like mist in the morning sun. His immense body began to give way. It began to fragment. From his pores, a fine red mist began to seep. It was not blood as we know it. It was a primal essence. It was the very lifeblood of creation. It was the raw material of the world. The mist grew thicker. It coalesced into rivulets. The rivulets became streams. The streams became rivers. And the rivers became a vast, surging flood. It was a flood of unimaginable scale. It was Ymir's blood. It was his essence. It poured forth from his dissolving body. It was a deluge unlike any other. It was an overwhelming, unstoppable force. The ground beneath them vanished. The three brothers found themselves standing on a small, rising island. It was formed from the last remnants of Ymir's solid form. They watched, awestruck, as the world transformed. The floodwaters rose swiftly. They were a deep crimson. They reflected the nascent light of the heavens. The sound was deafening. It was the roar of 1,000 waterfalls. It was the thunder of an ocean. The frost giants, Ymir's offspring, had been scattered across the icy plains. They were immense beings themselves, but they were mere children compared to Ymir. They slept in their icy hollows. They slept in their frozen caves. The waters reached them. They rose with terrifying speed. The giants stirred in their sleep. They awoke to a world drowning. They awoke to a crimson tide. They awoke to an inescapable fate. Their roars of alarm were swallowed by the torrent. Their colossal limbs thrashed. They tried to find purchase. They tried to find solid ground, but there was none. Only the swirling crimson depths. One by one, they were swept away. Their cries echoed briefly. Then they were silenced. Their enormous bodies, once so formidable, were tossed about like twigs. They were carried by the overwhelming current. The flood was indiscriminate. It consumed everything. It reshaped the landscape. It carved out valleys. It created chasms. It was a force of pure, primal cleansing. The three brothers watched. Their faces were etched with a quiet sorrow. This was a necessary sacrifice. This was a necessary ending, but it was an ending nonetheless. Among the multitude of giants, there was one named Bergelmir. He was not as grand as Ymir. He was not as ancient, but he was wise. He was insightful. He possessed a rare foresight. He had felt the subtle tremor in the earth. He had sensed the shift in the primordial energies. He had known, deep within his ancient bones, that a great change was coming. He had prepared. For days he had labored. He had hollowed out the trunk of an enormous tree. It was the largest tree in all the frozen lands. It was ancient beyond reckoning. His family worked alongside him. His wife, his children, they toiled in silence. They understood the urgency. They understood the unspoken threat. The tree trunk was immense. It was sturdy. It was hollowed into a crude vessel. It was not elegant. It was not beautiful. But it was strong. It was their only hope. As the first tendrils of the crimson flood reached their dwelling, Bergelmir urged his family inside. The waters swirled around the tree. They lifted it. They bore it aloft. The current was fierce. It spun the tree trunk. It hurled it through the churning waters. Bergelmir clung to the rough wood. His family huddled inside. They were terrified. They were silent. The roars of their kin echoed around them. The sounds of their struggle. The sounds of their drowning. Bergelmir closed his eyes. He wished them peace. He wished them oblivion. The tree trunk bobbed on the surging tide. It was a tiny speck. It was a solitary vessel. It was a fragile ark. It was tossed mercilessly. It was buffeted by the waves. The crimson flood stretched as far as the eye could see. It was an endless ocean. It was a boundless sea. It was the very blood of creation. The three brothers stood on their diminishing island. They watched the tree trunk. They watched it disappear into the distance. They watched it become a tiny, fleeting shadow. They knew that life would continue. They knew that a new world would emerge. They knew that from this vast, cosmic sacrifice, something beautiful would be born. The waters began to recede, very, very slowly. The land began to reappear. It was different now. It was reshaped. It was cleansed. It was ready. The crimson hue faded. It became a deep, rich brown. It became the fertile soil of a new earth. The mist cleared. The air became crisp. It became pure. Odin, Vili, and V looked at each other. They were exhausted. They were somber. But there was a spark of hope in their eyes. There was a glimmer of purpose. The world was silent now. The roar of the flood was gone. The cries of the giants were gone. Only the gentle lapping of newly formed seas remained. From the vast, dissolved body of Ymir, a new world began to form. His flesh became the land. His bones became the mountains. His blood became the oceans. His hair became the forests. His thoughts became the clouds. His very essence became the air we breathe. It was a transformation of unimaginable scale. It was a transformation of profound beauty. And somewhere, far away, the small, hollowed-out tree trunk continued its journey. It carried the last remnants of the frost giants. It carried the seeds of a new lineage. It was a journey into the unknown. It was a journey into a changed world. It was a journey into a future that was yet to be written. The moon, which had not yet been placed in the sky, seemed to watch. The stars, which had not yet been named, seemed to twinkle with anticipation. The three brothers stood on the emerging land. They looked out at the vast, new world. It was raw. It was fresh. It was ready for life. They had faced the immense. They had performed the impossible. They had brought about the necessary end. They had cleared the way for a new beginning. The air was still. It was expectant. It was filled with the promise of creation. The sounds of the new world were soft. They were gentle. They were the sounds of peace. The land stretched out before them. It was vast. It was empty. But it was pregnant with possibility. It was ready to receive the seeds of life. The sky above them was clear. It was immense. It was boundless. It was a canvas for the stars yet to be placed. Odin, Vili, and V began their new work. They began to shape the world. They began to mold the landscape. They began to bring order to the chaos. They knew that their task was far from over. This was only the beginning. This was only the foundation. This was only the first step. The gentle lapping of the waves was a lullaby. The soft breeze was a whisper. It carried the scent of fresh earth. It carried the promise of new life. The world was a blank slate. It was ready to be written upon. It was ready to be filled with stories. It was ready to be filled with life. And somewhere, the lone tree trunk continued its journey. It carried its precious cargo. It carried the future. It carried the hope of survival. The floodwaters had subsided. The world was calm. It was peaceful. It was ready for the next chapter. It was ready for the next beat. The three gods stood, their work awaited. Ymir lay before them, a vast, silent testament. His form, once menacing, now offered a profound stillness. A new dawn, pale and tentative, began to paint the distant sky, its faint light just touching the highest, yet to be formed peaks. A hush, deep and ancient, hung in the air, broken only by the soft, almost imperceptible hum of nascent creation. Odin, Vili, and Ve looked upon the giant. His immense bulk was a canvas. They saw not death, but potential. A world, vibrant and new, lay hidden within his stillness. A promise whispered on the gentle breeze that stirred the air around them. Odin felt a surge of purpose, a deep-seated conviction that this was their destiny, their sacred charge. Vili, ever practical, already envisioned the meticulous work ahead. Ve, the quietest, felt the profound weight of responsibility, a solemn understanding of the monumental task. His flesh, Odin murmured, his voice soft, almost a prayer. It must become the land. Vili nodded slowly, his gaze sweeping over the colossal form, already mentally mapping out the continents. Ve considered the weight of the task, the sheer scale of it, and a quiet determination settled upon his features. This was not a swift creation. It was a patient shaping, an act of profound reverence. They began with his enormous body. It was soft, yielding beneath their touch, like the richest loam. They spread it out, gently smoothing its contours, feeling the cool, almost damp give of the substance. The flesh stretched, vast and expansive, seeming to breathe with each movement. It settled into broad plains, sweeping vistas that would one day cradle life. It formed gentle valleys, inviting hollows that would soon teem with flora and fauna. Imagine a soft, rich earth, fertile and deep, smelling of damp soil and ancient moss. That was Ymir's flesh. It became the soil beneath our feet, a dark, nourishing blanket. It was the ground where forests would one day rise, where roots would intertwine, singing silent songs of growth. It was the foundation of all things, the very skin of the world. They worked with quiet reverence, their movements flowing with an almost supernatural grace. Each movement was deliberate, each placement precise, guided by an innate understanding of cosmic design. They felt the cool, damp earth forming beneath their hands, a substance that was both solid and alive. It hummed with nascent life, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through the air, a silent melody of creation. The faint light of dawn strengthened, casting long, ethereal shadows that danced around their working forms. Then came Ymir's bones. They were colossal, like ancient, petrified trees, gnarled and immense. These bones, once rigid and unyielding in the giant's form, now offered a different kind of strength, an enduring resilience. Ve lifted one, its immense weight a challenge even for a god, the bone cool and smooth beneath his touch. He felt the latent power within it, the raw potential for grandeur. These, Vili declared, his voice firm, will be the mountains. And so they were. The gods raised them carefully, intentionally, placing them with a vision of enduring majesty. Some bones formed jagged peaks, sharp and defiant, destined to pierce the clouds. Others became rolling hills, softer and more welcoming, like the gentle curves of a sleeping beast. They stood like silent sentinels, reaching towards the nascent sky, their forms majestic and timeless. They were the spine of the world, holding the land firm against the shifting forces of creation. The air around them grew cooler, thinner as they rose, a subtle shift in atmospheric pressure. The mountains rose, grand and enduring, the world's strong bones. They pierced the clouds, still forming above, like silent giants reaching for the heavens. They cradled the valleys below, offering shelter and shaping the flow of future waters. A sense of permanence settled upon the landscape, a deep, unshakable stability. Next, the blood. Ymir's blood was vast, an ocean in itself, dark and deep, reflecting the faint, emerging light of the sun like polished obsidian. It pulsed with a quiet energy, a slow, rhythmic beat that resonated through the newly formed earth. Odin looked at it, his brow furrowed in thought, a profound sense of awe in his gaze. He could feel the latent power, the life-giving essence contained within its depths. His blood, Odin stated, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy, will become the seas. And so it flowed, with a gentle, inexorable current. It rushed into the lowest places, filling the deep hollows carved by the spreading flesh. It spread across the vast expanses, seeking its natural level, creating boundless horizons. The air grew humid, carrying the fresh, clean scent of water. Imagine the deepest blue, a color that absorbs all light, and yet shimmers with an inner luminescence. Imagine the endless stretch of water, vast and unknowable. That was Ymir's blood. It became the mighty oceans, roaring with future tides. It became the tranquil lakes, still and reflective. It became the winding rivers, arteries carrying life throughout the land. It moved with a slow, rhythmic sway, a gentle breathing that resonated deep within the newly formed world. It carried the promise of life, teeming with unseen wonders. It reflected the emerging sky, a perfect, shimmering mirror. It was the world's lifeblood, nourishing everything, a vital, flowing essence. The water was cool and clear, shimmering in the faint, strengthening light. It sang a soft, ancient song, a gentle lapping against the nascent shores, a lullaby of creation. It was the world's quiet breath, sustaining all life, a constant, comforting presence. Then came Ymir's hair. It was long and thick, dark like the deepest night, yet surprisingly soft to the touch. It held the memory of the giant's wildness, his untamed essence. Vili gathered it, handful by handful, the strands silken and resilient. He felt a connection to the raw, untamed spirit of the giant, now being tamed and woven into the fabric of the world. His hair, Vili decided, a spark of inspiration in his eyes, will become the trees. And so it did, They planted it, strand by strand, with meticulous care, each hair becoming a potential seed. They envisioned vast, whispering forests, where the wind would hum through ancient boughs. They saw ancient, towering woods, silent guardians of the land. The hair softened, its dark color bleeding into shades of green and brown. It rooted itself in the new earth, drawing sustenance from the fertile ground. It unfurled into leaves, delicate and vibrant. It branched into mighty limbs, reaching towards the sky, eager for light. Imagine the rustling of leaves, a soft, ethereal whisper, like 1,000 tiny voices. Imagine the scent of pine, sharp and invigorating, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil. Imagine the deep shade of a forest, cool and inviting, a sanctuary from the emerging sun. That was Ymir's hair. It became the world's greenery, its vibrant cloak, a living tapestry of life. The trees grew, silent and strong, their forms solidifying with each passing moment. They provided shelter, a haven for future creatures. They offered beauty, an intricate dance of light and shadow. They breathed life into the new world, releasing fresh, clean air. They stood as guardians, enduring witnesses to time. Now the most delicate task remained. Ymir's skull. It was immense, a dome of bone, smooth and vast. It was hollow, cavernous, holding the vast emptiness above, a perfect vessel for the heavens. Ve looked up at it, a thoughtful expression on his face, the challenge clear in his mind. The sheer scale of it was daunting. His skull, Ve declared, his voice resonating with newfound authority, will be the sky. But how to hold it aloft? It was too heavy for even the gods to sustain forever, an impossible burden. They needed help, allies in this grand endeavor. They looked around, their divine senses reaching out. They saw 4 small beings, diligent and strong. They were strong, sturdy, and ancient, their forms hewn from the very rock of the earth. They were the dwarves, born from the primordial earth itself, imbued with its strength and resilience. Their names were Austri, Vestri, Nordri, and Sudri. They stood at the 4 cardinal points, as if awaiting their destined roles. They were wise, their eyes holding the ancient wisdom of the earth. They were enduring, capable of bearing immense burdens. They were perfect for the task. You, Odin called to them, his voice gentle yet commanding, echoing across the vast, new landscape. Will you hold the sky? The dwarves looked up, their small faces serious, their keen eyes understanding the immense responsibility. They nodded, a silent promise of loyalty and strength. And so they took their places, their forms small against the colossal skull. Austri stood in the east, facing the nascent dawn. Vestri stood in the west, awaiting the coming dusk. Nordri stood in the north, bracing against the cold, unformed winds. Sudri stood in the south, grounded and firm. They braced themselves, their powerful shoulders ready for their eternal burden. With a unified effort, a symphony of divine and earthly strength, they lifted Ymir's skull. Slowly, painstakingly, with an almost imperceptible groan, it rose. It ascended above the new world, a vast, protective dome. It became the vast, blue dome, stretching endlessly above. Imagine the boundless expanse above, a canvas of deepest azure. Imagine the endless blue, a color that deepens with distance, promising untold wonders. Imagine the stars, still hidden, waiting for night to fall, like diamonds scattered across velvet. That was Ymir's skull. It became the sky, the firmament above all things. It was held firm by the four dwarves, their small but resolute forms unmoving. They stood, unmoving, at the world's edges, eternal sentinels. They were the silent pillars, the unwavering guardians of the heavens. They bore the weight of the heavens, a testament to their strength and devotion. The sky was a canvas, vast and unblemished. It was ready for the sun to blaze across its surface. It was ready for the moon to cast its gentle glow. It was ready for the stars to twinkle like distant jewels. It was a promise of light, of cosmic order, of endless possibility. Finally, Ymir's brains. They were soft, ethereal, like wisps of mist. They floated above the nascent world, swirling with a quiet, misty energy, a delicate, almost imperceptible movement. Vili looked at them, a gentle smile touching his lips, recognizing their subtle beauty. His brains, Vili whispered, his voice hushed with wonder, will become the clouds. And so they did. They coalesced, gathering into soft, billowy forms. They drifted, carried by unseen currents, forming ever-changing patterns. They became the soft, white wisps, ephemeral and beautiful. Imagine the fluffy, white shapes, like cotton drifting across an endless blue. Imagine the gentle, gray masses, heavy with the promise of rain. Imagine the shifting veils across the sky, obscuring and revealing the sun. That was Ymir's brains. They became the clouds, the breath of the sky. They moved with the wind, playful and free. They brought rain, nourishing the thirsty earth. They brought shade, a gentle respite from the emerging sun. They were the sky's soft breath, the visible exhalation of the world. They veiled the sun in gentle light. They cradled the stars in their misty embrace, awaiting the night. The gods looked upon their work, a profound sense of accomplishment settling upon them. The world was taking shape, its contours clear and defined. It was a place of breathtaking beauty. It was a place of perfect balance, a harmony of elements. It was a place teeming with potential, waiting for life to bloom. The plains stretched wide and green, a verdant carpet. The mountains rose, majestic and strong, piercing the sky. The seas shimmered, vast and deep, reflecting the heavens. The forests whispered secrets, their leaves rustling with silent songs. The sky arched, boundless and blue, a protective canopy. The clouds drifted, soft and ethereal, veiling the sun in gentle light. This was Midgard. This was the Middle Realm, a realm of balance and life. It was a place between realms, a bridge between the cosmic and the earthly. It was a home for future life, a cradle for humanity. It was a testament to creation, a living, breathing masterpiece. The gods felt a deep satisfaction, a quiet pride in their labor. Their work was not done, for life still needed to be created. But the foundation was laid, solid and enduring. The world breathed, a slow, rhythmic inhale and exhale. It hummed with a quiet energy, a vibrant hum of nascent life. The air was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of damp earth and nascent greenery. The wind carried new scents, the promise of flowers and future harvests. The silence was profound, a sacred stillness. It was the silence of beginnings, of a world newly born. It was the hush of creation, a moment suspended in time. They had brought order from chaos, form from the formless. They had brought beauty from the monstrous, transforming destruction into creation. Ymir, the giant, was no more. But from his essence, a world was born, a testament to the power of transformation. The sun, not yet fully formed, cast a gentle light, soft and golden. It touched the peaks of the new mountains, illuminating their majestic forms. It sparkled on the fresh waters, dancing like countless diamonds. It shimmered through the nascent trees, painting their leaves in vibrant hues. The world was a vibrant tapestry, intricately woven. Each element was distinct, yet each element was connected, interwoven into a harmonious whole. It was a harmony of earth, water, and sky, a perfect balance. It was a symphony of creation, played out in silence and light. The dwarves, small but resolute, held the sky, their shoulders strong and unyielding. They stood firm, unwavering in their eternal vigil. They were the silent guardians of the heavens, their commitment absolute. The gods walked across the new land, their footsteps leaving no trace, for they were part of the creation itself. They were one with the world, their essence intertwined with its very fabric. They saw the potential for life, for countless beings to flourish. They saw the promise of warmth, of sun-drenched days and gentle nights. They saw the possibility of growth, of evolution and change. This was their gift to the cosmos. This was their legacy, etched into the very being of Midgard. The world was vast. It was empty, a pristine canvas. But it was ready. It was waiting for life to bloom, for seeds to sprout and creatures to stir. It was waiting for stories to unfold, for sagas to be written upon its very surface. The soft light of dawn deepened, growing stronger, warmer. It painted the world in gentle hues, a masterpiece of light and shadow. Golds and purples mingled, bleeding into each other like watercolor. Blues and greens emerged, vivid and pure. The air was still cool, crisp, and invigorating. A quiet breeze rustled the newborn trees, a whisper of life. It carried the scent of fresh earth, rich and fertile. It carried the promise of new life, a sweet, hopeful aroma. The rhythmic lapping of waves began, a soft, comforting sound. It was a soft lullaby, the ocean singing its ancient song. It was the heartbeat of the world, a steady, reassuring pulse. It echoed through the vastness, a gentle rhythm of existence. The mountains stood tall, unyielding, and majestic. They were silent witnesses, observing the birth of a world. They had seen the chaos, the primordial void. They now saw the beauty, the dawn of order. They would endure, standing firm against the tides of time. The sky stretched above, an infinite dome, vast and boundless. It was a protective canopy, shielding the world below. It held the world safe, a celestial embrace. The clouds drifted lazily, like giant, ethereal ships. They formed shifting patterns, ever-changing works of art. They were the dreams of the world, whispered on the wind. They hinted at what was to come, at the mysteries yet to unfold. The gods paused their work, a shared moment of contemplation. They stood together, their forms radiant in the new light. They observed their creation, a quiet sense of pride filling them, a deep satisfaction in a job well done. This was a world born of sacrifice, a transformation of primordial chaos. This was a world born of purpose, a divine intention made manifest. This was a world born of love, a profound act of creation. It was a marvel, a testament to their power and wisdom. Midgard was ready. It was waiting. It was a cradle for life, a fertile ground for growth. It was a stage for destiny, where countless tales would unfold. It was a testament to the power of creation, a living monument. The silence was profound, a sacred stillness. It was a silence of completion, of a task fulfilled. It was a silence of peace, a tranquil calm that settled over the land. It was the world breathing its first slow breaths. The sun began its slow ascent, a golden orb rising above the eastern mountains. It promised a new day, a fresh beginning. It promised warmth, a gentle embrace. It promised light, illuminating every corner of the world. It promised life, abundant and vibrant. The world was a masterpiece, intricate in its detail, vast in its scope. It was beautiful, a breathtaking vision. It was home, not just for future beings, but for the gods themselves, a place where their essence would forever be intertwined. The gods would watch over it, their divine presence a constant guardianship. They would guide its growth, nurturing its development. They would cherish its existence, for it was a part of them. This was their world, born of their hands and their will. Now rest. Let the images of this new world fill your mind, its beauty and peace washing over you. Let the quiet rhythm of creation soothe you, a gentle lullaby. Let the gentle peace of Midgard lull you to sleep, its vastness comforting. All is calm. All is well. The gentle waves whispered secrets to the shore. 2 logs, smooth and weathered, lay upon the sand. They had drifted for untold ages from a distant, forgotten forest, until finding this quiet resting place, The world was new. A hush still lay over its vibrant landscapes. Odin, the Allfather, walked with a thoughtful gaze. Beside him, his brothers followed Vili, whose wisdom ran deep, and Vi, whose touch brought life. Their steps were soft, they left no trace upon the pristine earth. They had shaped the cosmos, they had ordered the stars. The logs caught Odin's eye. One was ash, the other elm. They seemed ordinary, mere fallen wood, yet Odin felt a spark within them. He knelt, his brow furrowed in contemplation. A profound idea began to bloom within his mind. These, he murmured, his voice a low rumble, they hold potential. Vili and Vi looked closer. They saw only wood, they saw only stillness. But Odin's vision pierced deeper. He saw life, he saw consciousness waiting. He reached out a hand, his touch was light. A shimmering warmth flowed from his fingertips. It enveloped the ash log first, then the elm. A subtle change began. A faint glow emanated from the wood. From these humble forms, Odin declared, his eyes alight with purpose, we shall bring forth humankind. Vili nodded slowly. Vi's lips curved into a gentle smile. This was a grand endeavor, a truly magnificent creation. Odin leaned closer to the ash log. He breathed upon it, a long, steady breath. A faint mist, like morning dew, curled from his lips. It infused the wood, it settled deep within its core. I grant you spirit asterisk, Odin said, his voice resonating with power. A breath of life, a spark of divine fire. The ash log pulsed softly. A subtle warmth radiated from its surface. It was no longer mere wood, it was something more. He turned to the elm log. Again, he breathed upon it. The same ethereal mist enveloped it. And to you, he continued, I grant the same, a spirit to guide your journey. Both logs now glowed faintly. They were ready for the next transformation. Vili stepped forward. His gaze was kind, his presence serene. He placed a hand upon the ash log. A wave of calm energy flowed from him. It seeped into the wood. It awakened something dormant. I bestow upon you understanding asterisk, Vili spoke, his voice clear and resonant. The ability to reason, to comprehend the world around you. A faint tremor ran through the ash log. It was a nascent awareness, a dawning intelligence. He then touched the elm log. His touch was equally gentle, equally profound. And movement asterisk, Vili added, his voice soft but firm. The grace to walk, the freedom to explore. The elm log shifted slightly. A nascent strength stirred within its fibers. Finally, Vi approached. His eyes were bright, his touch precise. He knelt beside the ash log. He touched its surface with delicate care. A gentle warmth spread from his fingertips. I give you asterisk senses, Vi intoned, his voice like a melodic whisper. The gift of sight, the beauty of sound. He traced an invisible line where eyes might be. He touched where ears would form. The ash log seemed to shiver with anticipation. He moved to the elm log. His touch was just as tender, just as transformative. And speech, he concluded, his voice imbued with wonder. The power to communicate, to share your thoughts. He touched where lips would be. A low hum emanated from the wood. Slowly, impossibly, the logs began to change. The bark softened. It melted into flesh. The wood reshaped itself. It formed limbs and features. The ash log elongated. It broadened into a masculine form. The elm log curved. It softened into a feminine shape. Hair sprouted, eyes opened. Fingers uncurled, toes unfurled. A man stood, a woman stood. They were naked, they were vulnerable. Yet, they were beautiful, perfect in their newness. They were Ask and Imbla, the first humans. Their eyes blinked slowly. They gazed at the world around them. It was a riot of color, a symphony of sound. The sky was a brilliant blue, the trees, a vibrant green. The air was fresh, it carried the scent of blossoms. Ask looked at his hands. He flexed his fingers, they responded to his will. A gasp escaped his lips. It was a sound he had never heard, yet it was his own. He touched his face. His skin was smooth. Embla looked at Ask. Her eyes widened in wonder. She saw a reflection of herself, a companion in this new existence. A smile, hesitant and sweet, touched her lips. She reached out, her hand met his. Their fingers intertwined. A warmth spread through them, a sense of connection. They were not alone, they were together. They were the first, they were the beginning. Odin, Vili, and Vi watched. Their faces were serene, their hearts filled with pride. They had given life, they had given consciousness. They had brought forth humanity. Ask and Imbla took their first steps. They were wobbly, they were uncertain. But they were steps forward. They explored their surroundings, they touched the grass, they felt the sun on their skin. Every sensation was new, every moment a revelation. What is this place? Imbla whispered, her voice soft and curious. What are these feelings? Ask looked up at the gods. His eyes were filled with questions, his spirit with awe. Odin smiled. This, dear ones, is your world. He gestured broadly. A realm of beauty, a place of discovery. He paused. But this world is just one part of a grander design. He lifted his hand. Above them, the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, stretched into the heavens. Its roots delved deep into the earth. It was the axis of all existence, the binder of realms. We have ordered the cosmos, Odin explained, his voice gentle. We have established homes for all beings. He pointed upwards. High above, beyond the clouds, lies Asgard. His gaze was distant, his voice filled with reverence. Asgard is our home, the dwelling place of the Aesir. Here we shall gather, here we shall govern. He described its gleaming halls, its golden roofs. He spoke of Valhalla, the hall of heroes. And below Asgard, he continued, his gaze returning to Ask and Imbla. Is this realm your realm? He swept his hand across the landscape. This is Midgard, the Middle Earth. It is a place for you to thrive, Odin declared. To build, to create, to experience life in all its fullness. He spoke of its fertile fields, its flowing rivers, its majestic mountains. He promised abundance. He promised opportunity. But there are other realms too, Vili added, his voice calm. Realms beyond your sight, realms connected by the mighty Yggdrasil. He pointed to the north. Far away, where the frost giants dwell, is Jotunheim. They are the descendants of Ymir, he explained, his voice low. The remaining giants, those who survived the great flood. He spoke of its icy wastes, its towering peaks. He spoke of a land both harsh and beautiful. And there are others, Vili continued, his voice softer now. Vanaheim, the home of the Vanir, gods of fertility and wisdom. He spoke of its lush landscapes, its gentle breezes. And Alfheim, he added, the realm of the light elves, beings of grace and beauty. He described their luminous forms, their ethereal music. And Svartalfheim, Odin stated, the realm of the dark elves, skilled craftsmen and dwellers beneath the earth. He spoke of their intricate tunnels, their glittering treasures. And Niflheim, Vili murmured, his voice tinged with solemnity, the realm of mist and ice, a cold and ancient land. He spoke of its primordial origins, its chilling depths. And Muspelheim, he whispered, his voice resonating with power, the realm of fire and light, where the fire giants reside. He spoke of its searing heat, its unquenchable flames. And Helheim, Odin concluded, his tone somber, the realm of the dead, ruled by the goddess Hel. He spoke of its shadowy paths, its silent inhabitants. Ask and Imbla listened. Their minds reeled with the vastness of it all. So many realms, so many beings. Their world, Midgard, was but one small part of this immense tapestry. All are connected, Odin reiterated, his voice firm, by the roots and branches of Yggdrasil. He looked at Ask and Imbla. You, humans, are placed in the middle, a bridge between worlds. A sense of peace descended upon the new world. The gods had brought order from chaos. They had forged a cosmos. They had created life. The realms were established, their inhabitants placed. The sun began to set. The sky turned hues of orange and purple. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. Ask and Imbla stood hand in hand, their eyes fixed on the horizon. They felt a deep sense of belonging. They were new, they were fragile, but they were part of something grand. They were part of the story. They were part of the world. The gods turned to leave. Their work was done. They had brought forth a new age, a new beginning. They walked away, their forms fading into the twilight. Ask and Imbla watched them go. A quiet awe filled their hearts. They were alone now, yet they were not afraid. They had each other. They had Midgard. The stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky. Each one a distant sun, each one a testament to the gods' creation. The air grew cooler. A soft luminescence emanated from the moon. Ask looked at Imbla. Her profile was silhouetted against the fading light. He saw strength, he saw hope, he saw a future. And Blah looked at Ask. His eyes held a gentle wisdom. She felt safe, she felt cherished, she felt ready. They sat upon the sand. The waves continued their soft rhythm. The world was quiet, it was beautiful. It was ready for life to flourish. The seeds of humanity had been sown. The realms were in place. The great world tree, Yggdrasil, stood strong. A new era had begun. Sleep now, little one. The world is safe, the cosmos, ordered. May your dreams be filled with wonder. May your spirit find peace. The night holds its own quiet magic. Let it carry you gently into slumber. If these whispers brought you rest, you're welcome to subscribe for more calm tales. A gentle, like also guides fellow night owls here.